Welcome back to Her Rules Radio. I'm Alex Jameson. Today's show is a hard topic for some, but it's incredibly important. We can all do something to help. If you want to set aside time that's quiet and feel safe to listen to this show about sex trafficking, get comfortable, supported, and have a journal or a trusted friend on speed dial. This show is also about a woman who took her early traumas and turned them into her mission. So many of us, including myself, turn our problems into our purpose. So if you're passionate about a topic that you've lived through and survived, I want you to get inspired by today's interview. Your secret or personal shame from early childhood or recent history could very well become your life's work. Today, I talk with Kristen Harness, who turned her early mess into her message. Kristen has made rescuing the victims, girls and young women who get caught up and forced into prostitution, sex, and human trafficking through her organization, Extended Hands of Hope. And if you know or suspect you know a victim or have seen a victim of human trafficking, you can contact the National Human Trafficking Hotline to connect with services and support for human trafficking survivors or to report a tip. You can call 1-888-373-7888 or text 233733. Or go and check out Kristen Harness's organization that she'll tell us about, extendedhandsofhope.org. Kristen Harness, so glad to have you here on Her Rules Radio.
Thank you.
So you are the founder and CEO of Extended Hands of Hope, and you raise awareness and support for girls caught in the web of human trafficking,
Yes.
Especially in Colorado.
Yes.
And you have expanded the mission and the reach of your initial project. I'm so happy that you're here to shed light on this really important subject. Mm-hmm. And I want to know where you first stepped into this work.
Yeah.
And it sounds like it was a very personal touch point for you.
It was, absolutely. You know, I grew up without my dad around. I had witnessed domestic violence when I was young. He left my life when I was 5, kind of in and out of my life. Suffered a lot of the, negative repercussions that come with a daughter not having her dad in her life. And what I tell people is, I spent years, especially in my teenage years, looking for love in all the wrong places, looking for acceptance, looking for guys to validate me and to want me. And so that led to just a lot of destructive decisions in my life. And at the age of 14, I had experienced sexual assault by an older guy that I knew. The police, it was reported to the police. Police didn't do anything about it. It was a really damaging situation that I went through. At the age of 17, I was raped by a stranger in a club in the streets of downtown Denver. I was left on the streets alone there. Never reported it, never did anything about it, never talked to anybody about it. Then at the age of 19 to 20, experienced sexual exploitation within a church and just really had years of my life of being really broken and living in a really dark place. And, as I started the healing process in my own life, hitting rock bottom and saying, I've got to have a change in my life, I started becoming really passionate and compassionate for other young ladies that were experiencing sexual trauma of any sort. And that brought me to going to Pattaya, Thailand in 2004. And Pattaya is a sex tourism town. When I went there, 15 years ago now, 70% of the population was involved in prostitution. Everywhere you look, it's Western men and Thai women and children. And it was just a really devastating trip for me. And it was like my first encounter with human trafficking. And I had never even heard the phrase before. And so after that trip, I was just thinking, I got to do something to help victims of human trafficking because I knew what it felt like to experience sexual trauma. And then on top of that, to think that these people were experiencing that daily, but then somebody was profiting from it was disturbing for me.
So when you came back to the States, when did you realize that
sex and human trafficking was also a problem here. I think a lot of people think of it as a problem out there somewhere around the globe, but it's very common here too.
Absolutely, it is. Yeah, a lot of people still think when they hear human trafficking that it's only happening in Thailand or it's only happening in places like Cambodia. When I came back from Thailand, I spent the first several years educating myself on human trafficking. I wanted to understand, what did I just see? Who is it happening to? Where is it happening to? And just through research alone, I started learning that it was the second fastest growing organized crime here in the United States. It's not a new crime. It's not anything new happening. And that Colorado had some of the highest reported instances of child sex trafficking in the nation. And probably about 8 years ago, I was going to move back to Thailand and like save Thailand. And then when I realized that my own state had a really big problem with sex trafficking, and we had a major gap in services, major lack of resources. We didn't have a safe home for these girls to go to. So when I was meeting with FBI and law enforcement to ask how we could help, they kept saying, we have all these girls, but we don't have anywhere for them to go. So when we, quote unquote, rescue a young girl from a trafficking situation, let's say a 14-year-old girl, who 90% of them have past history of sexual abuse, so been abused their whole life and then trafficked, and then they get rescued and then they were going to jail or detention centers.
Oh, man. And even finding a home for them with, let's say, a couple who signed up to take in kids.
Yeah, like a foster home.
Like foster home. Are those foster families, do they have the capacity to help a girl who's coming out of a situation like this?
No.
Like they need professional and really
training.
Loving, compassionate help. Yeah.
That's the trouble, is there are foster families out there that have the heart for it. They're just not equipped or trained. And these girls have been through a lot of trauma, and there's a lot of implications to what they've gone through. And that comes out in a lot of ways, that if you're not equipped to handle somebody that's been through that, it can actually be re-traumatizing for that girl. And statistically speaking, about 86% of sex trafficking victims came out of the foster care system. So the foster care system is a place that is supposed to be protecting these kiddos, but can actually be doing the opposite and be an abusive, exploitative place for them.
Yeah. Now, the only case that most people have heard of that's even close anywhere near related to this, and there have been more and more stories, but the one that's gotten the most attention lately is Centoya Brown, the girl who shot and killed her abuser when she was 16.
Yep.
And she's finally getting out of jail.
Right.
Many people fought on her behalf for years. She was in jail for years.
Right.
Basically, a case of self-defense. And the problem's so massive. But why do you think we don't hear more about sex trafficking and sexual exploitation in the U.S.?
One, it's such a dark subject. It's so heavy. When I look at the people that we talk to about it in Colorado, they just don't want to hear it. They just don't want to believe that something so dark and heavy could be happening in the land of the free, or in such a beautiful state like Colorado or anywhere around the United States. So I think one is people just don't want to know. Two, sex trafficking is around because there's a demand for it. There is a demand that's driving this, okay? A demand mostly from men. So just the reality, not, bashing men, but the reality is, but statistically speaking, 99% of buyers are men. And so there's a demand for sex with children. And again, people don't want to hear that. But it can be men of all different kinds of socioeconomic backgrounds, races, all that. But some of these men that are involved in it, they're high profile men, or they're in institutions or societies where they're protected.
They're powerful men.
They're protected by money. They're protected by status, whatever that looks like. Even within, again, going back to institutions that should be set up to help kids, but they're hurting kids, these exploiters, even within churches, they're protected by the people that are around them. And so, again, that's another reason why we don't hear a lot about it.
So Hands of Hope is really on the front lines. You have a safe, healing home for girls to come get help, put their lives back together.
Yep.
and try to reclaim some of their childhood, really, that's been stolen from them.
Yep. That's our motto, is that every girl deserves a childhood and that none of them deserve to be abused, because a lot of times, even no matter what you've been through, if you've experienced any kind of abuse, we hold on to that as if we did something to deserve that abuse.
Right.
And so they can carry this guilt and shame that they must have done something that their dad would traffic them or their dad would abuse them. And so we really want to show them that they didn't deserve to be abused and that there's hope for healing.
Yeah.
They don't have to, what happened to them does not have to define the rest of their life.
Right. And I want to go back into your own journey with this.
Yeah.
We all struggle with imposter syndrome.
Yeah.
Well, I don't want to speak for everybody, but 95%.
Yeah, I think you might be lying if you say you don't.
So how did you learn to handle the imposter syndrome? I mean, you talk about going into a room filled with FBI agents and officials, talking about how can I help? What can I do?
Yeah.
Was there ever a voice in your head that's like, who do you think you are?
Always. Okay. Sitting here right now. No, always. I literally had people tell me that I wasn't qualified to do this, because I don't have a master's in social work. My background is computer science. I was a business analyst before getting into the nonprofit world. I mean, to my face, have had people say that to me. And so, of course, then my inner voice, too, is like, who do I think I am? I can't do this. But at the end of the day, for me, I had to just make a decision on whether or not I was going to believe that so much that I was going to let that stop me. And the thing about it is I'm a pretty stubborn person.
I noticed I tell people to be stubborn came up.
I'm stubborn. And I'm like, especially when it's for somebody else, because this is not about me. And I think that's the biggest thing with combating imposter syndrome. If you can find a way to really grasp the fact that this is probably not about you and you need to get past that because you're probably helping somebody else. And if your journey is to help, like us, help girls heal or whatever that is in your business, like the way to get past it is this isn't about me. This is about them. And so I'm just going to do what I know how to do and do it to the best of my ability.
And you have taken this stubbornness for the greater good, we'll call it.
Right.
Not only did you create Extended Hands of Hope, there's now Simply Good Cakery, which is a bakery business, which part of the money goes to support the nonprofit. And you're also working on creating Executive 31, which I would love for you to talk about for a minute, because when we spoke about this yesterday, it's like, oh, thank heavens someone is creating this. So tell us about Executive 31, this next project.
Yeah. I'm so excited about it. I love Extending Hands of Hope, and I want to use Executive 31 to continue to support and raise awareness about what we do at Extending Hands of Hope and raise money. But, over my little over 6 years of running Extending Hands of Hope, I have experienced incredible burnout.
Yeah.
And anxiety, the depression, the loneliness, the isolation. And, I'm sure that those feelings, they're transferable to all different kinds of fields, right? We all feel like, hey, you don't understand what I'm going through. I don't have anybody to talk to. But within the nonprofit world, as a female nonprofit executive specifically, which is what Executive 31 is for, our target market, there's this responsibility that we have of making so many different people happy all the time. We have to make donors happy. We have to make clients happy, board members, staff, the government, everybody happy all the time. And then we're also somebody like me, we have kids, we're married, we're trying to make them happy.
Oh, you have a life too?
We have a life. Yeah. Right. But we also we carry the weight of our clients on our shoulders.
Yeah.
It's like literally for us, we've got lives on the line.
Right.
And that's heavy.
Yeah.
And, I just started becoming so fascinated by these women. And I know this sounds terrible, but myself included, right? And just kind of how these women and these nonprofits are out there. They're not getting into it because they want recognition. Lord knows they're not getting into it because they're getting paid a lot of money. They're getting into it because they care about changing their world.
Yeah.
And they care about society and about people that don't have a voice and don't have people supporting them. And that's a heavy burden. And they're dealing with a lot of exhaustion and the things that I talked about before and feeling really lonely. And so Executive 31 is about providing support, encouragement, and uplifting and highlighting these incredible women that are working every day that nobody knows about to change this world through a digital community. So we're actually developing an app.
Cool. As you have been building, I mean, you have 3 different massive projects you're in the midst of growing. Probably some other ideas on the side.
Always.
I'm sure if I know women like you, it's not a lack of ideas, it's the problem.
Right.
How has your physical well-being been impacted, and how have you had to commit to your self-care through the growth stages?
Physical well-being, not good. Let's just be real. Okay. Physically, emotionally, all of those things, I have experienced a lot of negative over the last 6 years. It's worn me out. It's made me sick in a lot of ways. And I think that's where I'm at right now in my life with Executive 31 is I feel the shift. I came to this reality where I said, you know what? I really need to start taking care of myself because I'm not going to last. And a lot of women in the nonprofit world, they don't last past like 4-7 years. And then they leave the nonprofit world altogether because it's just too much.
It's such a brain drain, right? We lose the people just as they're becoming really masterful.
Correct. And it's a detriment to this world, to be quite honest, because these women are innovative, they're hardworking, they're compassionate, they're smart, they're talented, and we're losing them. And so for me, I've had wake-up calls because I've had some
You've pushed yourself
really bad diagnosis, but enough to know that
it gets scary.
I'm going the wrong direction and I have a family to take care of. And so for me, I just had to make a decision. So it's just bringing back time to exercise, to try to make healthy choices. And then for my mental health well-being, which to me is so important because mental health is key to physical health. They all work together.
They do. Dang it.
They do. And I know it firsthand. I've always struggled in my life, literally since I was little, a baby with physical illness, but also with mental health problems, with depression, anxiety. So that's something that I already really struggle with.
Right.
And this has just really like pulled it out,
being
a part of it. But now I'm starting to see that I need to take care of myself because you can't take care of others. I know it's cliche. You can't take care of others if you're not taking care of yourself.
But man, that one thing right there is, we say it over and over again. It's on bumper stickers and on all of our desktops because it's so true. We have to take care of ourselves first.
Yes.
I'm curious if there are any rules. This is Her Rules Radio.
Okay.
So are there any rules that you have for yourself that you try to live by? And I know we're not perfect, but are there any rules about your self-care or about how you handle your emotional or spiritual state that you try to live by?
Yeah. Yeah. For me, I'm a Christian woman. So a rule for me is I've got to have some, what I call my quiet time, reading, praying, meditating for the day, because even if it's 5 minutes, I have to have that for me. And another rule for me is, I've always said this from the very beginning, I'm not going to sacrifice my own relationship with my children to help somebody else's children. And so a rule for me is that I have to make time for my kids, spend time with my kids, shut the phone off, be there with them, do things with them, travel with them. I'm not the best, I'm not perfect, but I've always made that a priority. My kids a priority.
Yeah.
And so those are kind of the 2 rules that I have right now.
And what is a rule that you see the world living by or women living by that you think we should either do away with completely or rewrite?
I think, you've probably heard this too. I think other people see this, but there's so much pressure on us as women. Oh my gosh, there's so much pressure, especially if you're married and have kids. But then if you're not married and you don't have kids, then you have this pressure to be married and have kids. Oh my gosh,
we just can't do it right.
You can't. Yeah. I feel like women, we can never please everyone. We can never do everything right.
Yeah. I only had 1 kid. What's wrong with seriously?
Right.
Why am I not having more kids?
Exactly.
I get that all the time.
Yeah. Why would you want to have a single, a kid, by itself? But I feel like we're never, perfect for everybody. And we just carry all this pressure and this guilt. Oh my gosh, all the time I'm carrying this guilt of, I'm not giving enough to the nonprofit. I'm not giving enough to my husband, my kids. And that can be like super debilitating. Yeah. I would love to be able to get rid of that, where we can, walk around really in freedom, and we can be confident in the decisions that we've made for our life and the things that we're doing, and support each other. So I think that's the heaviest, is that there's just so much pressure that we have to do it all the time. And somebody like me and like you, I like to do it all, like, especially for like the greater good. And the problem with me is there's always a need, right?
Right.
Over Christmas, we had 20 girls on our wait list at the home. I'm trying to build more homes so we can help more girls. There is always a need.
Right.
And so there's always this pressure and this guilt of we got to do more work.
I love that you brought that up, especially as you are, you're one of the faces of Extended Hands of Hope.
Mm-hmm.
And you're not only out there raising funds to help these girls, but you're helping create the environment where these girls are coming in to become strong women and put themselves back together, and for them to live by a new set of rules by their own making, so that they can live life without guilt and shame. We hope someday.
Mm-hmm.
Kristen, thank you so much for being here. I want everyone to go check out extendedhandsofhope.org, Simply Good Cakery, and look out for Executive 31. It's such a great mission. Thank you for being here.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Thanks again for listening to this week's episode of Her Rules Radio. Just in case you want to find out what your values are and double down on your unique excellence, you can go to alexandrajameson.com/values and download the Unveil Your Values workbook. It's an incredible guide to help you really hone in on your core values, and then discover a few ways that you can use them every day to help you make quicker, more graceful, more laser-like decisions that help you feel really confident in yourself and help you commit to your creative dreams and your self-care. So again, go to alexandrajameson.com/values and download your free Unveil Your Values guide.